Since its initial release back in 2018, the Hyundai Palisade has literally been rolling itself off showroom floors because of such high demand. And as many of you may know already, I have rose-tinted glasses for the love of my life in this segment, the Honda Pilot. But bias aside, after a week with this Palisade, I want to talk about if this Korean 3-row family hauler is still worth the hubbub. This Palisade in particular is a 2023 Palisade Calligraphy with all-wheel drive in Hyundai's very vibrant, robust emerald green. It's a really cool color, but right now it looks black. In the sun, it looks green. The MSRP of this green and chrome mammoth is just around $52,000, which is quite a lot of money, but this is the fully loaded example, so it would compete with the likes of the Honda Pilot Elite, the Toyota Highlander Platinum, and other plush family haulers. Hyundai seems to have a Palisade for everyone in the market. There's 5 trim levels for your Palisade for 2023. Starting off with the SE, which is around $36,000, then the SEL, XRT, which is their off-roady trim level. I'll complain about that in a second. Limited, and Calligraphy like this one. One of the many ways to distinguish a Calligraphy Palisade compared to the XRT or the Limited or all those other trims is the amount of chrome on the front. That is the only problem I have with this. I actually like the chrome on the front of the grille here, but if it didn't have this lower trim down here that was, well, not chrome, but brushed aluminum, I think it would look better. So despite the trim level that you choose, Hyundai offers the Palisade with only one engine option, and thankfully it's a pretty decent one. So all of these are powered by Hyundai and Kia's Lambda 2 3.8 liter dual overhead cam and direct injected V6. It's also on an Atkinson cycle, but in this application it makes 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Power goes through a conventional 8-speed automatic and Hyundai's optional H-Track all-wheel drive system, which is more front biased, but it can lock up to 50-50 front and rear. In terms of MPGs, Hyundai claims about 19 in the city, 27 on the highway, and in my week of testing, I've been getting about 20 in town actually. This thing is about 4,400 pounds, but surprisingly it gets this thing to 60 miles an hour in just under 7 seconds. I really do have to say I'm glad that Hyundai did not turn this into a van like the Santa Fe XL. But Hyundai does offer the Palisade with a few different wheel options depending on which model in the Palisade hierarchy that you choose from. You start off with 18-inch alloy wheels on the base SE and the SEL, but as you climb up from the XRT, Limited, and Calligraphy, you get different 20-inch alloy wheels. This one, being a Calligraphy, has these more swanky looking 20-inch alloy wheels wrapped around 245 with all-season tires. And even though that the Palisade XRT is their more rugged and marketed to be kind of off-roady like a Pilot Trail Sport, it is not like that. It is not like that. Ground clearance on all Palisades is 8 inches, which is good, better than some other vehicles in the class. Now, I've found a volunteer. This was not something that I stole, by the way. I found this here, but something that I would, something that I would expect with this loaded Calligraphy, and I've been trying it so it's not user error, and I've checked all the settings, is a hands-free kick tailgate. It does have a power tailgate. If you're like me and you find a random Lime scooter just in the park, you can take it with you for home, but there's a lot of space in the back of the Palisade. I am not putting this in the trunk of the car. I wanted to do this. So, there's a lot of space in the back seat of, well, the trunk of your Palisade Calligraphy. Behind the power folding third row, which I can demonstrate, I pushed the wrong way. It's power reclining as well, but there's 18 cubic feet of volume just behind the power folding third row. If you fold the 60-40 split folding third row down, you have up to 46 cubic feet of volume. And if you fold both the second and third row flat, you have up to 155. That's what I said. 155 cubic feet of volume. That's 40 cubic feet bigger than the Pilot. The love of my life. This is bigger than that.
That's a huge bitch.
And there's also a 12-volt power outlet in the trunk as well. But that's it. There is also a convenient storage cubby underneath the floor that's big enough for me to put my camera bag in. So that's nice, and that's also where the jack and it seems like a toolkit is as well. If you're wondering about a spare tire, this one has a donut. Good. And in terms of towing capacity, this one can tow up to 5,000 pounds. It also has a tow mode that helps with trailer swaying. So Hyundai makes it extremely easy to get into the third row. This one, because it has captain's chairs, makes it even easier, so you could climb through the little aisle, but you can just use this one button either on the top of the seat or right in front, and it slides the seat forward. The rear doors open so wide, and also there's so much space to get into the back. And if I sit back here, pull this all the way back, this seat doesn't go to its last position that it was latched into, so let me pull this. I'm reasonably comfortable. It's not that tight. I'm 5'9". Headroom is great because this thing is so square. There is so much headroom in the back. My knees are a little bit, well, pretty high up, but that's a compromise with third rows. At least the material on the back is pretty, well, on the bottom of the seat is actually pretty soft, a perforated leather. Hyundai also thought about third row passengers because these seats in the third row are heated. There's also USB-C ports in here and also 4 cup holders. To add to the third row comfort, there's air vents for third row passengers. There aren't sun visors, but my God, the headliner is so swanky. But this is the party trick, power reclining third row. Pretty decent. Comfort increases as we get into the second row. First of all, again, look at how wide these rear doors open. You can get child seats in here, a Lime scooter, anything that you want. But step-in height is real easy in the back of this. And I'm actually super comfortable. Let's close the door. A nice solid thunk. On the door, there's 2 cup holders on each rear door, and there's rear sunshades on this model. All 4 windows are auto up and down, which is very nice. Speaking about windows, there's this big one up here that doesn't open. It's just a glass roof, but I love it because it really opens up the interior, makes it feel so much lighter in here. The only thing that kind of makes sense because of little kids, but you know, if you have adults back here, I wish I had a control for the shade instead of like, can you close the shade for me? You know? The rear seats themselves are really comfortable. In this row, they're heated and cooled. The bottoms are very supportive. Like I said, this has the captain's chairs. It also has armrests that are adjustable. It's just as comfortable and it's just as wide as a minivan back here. I'm 5'9", like I said. Headroom is great. Legroom is fantastic, of course. The second row seats slide forwards and backwards, of course. So, you know, if you want to give the third row passengers a lot of room, I still have a lot of room myself. Each seat has this little pocket on the inside as well, so you could put your phone or something in there. Very useful. The second row passengers have a rear climate control zone, and they're underneath the heated and cooled seats, well, the buttons for the second row. Underneath that, there's a 115-volt power outlet, really nice, and another 12-volt power outlet. There's also 2 more USB-C ports, one on each side of the driver or passenger side seat. Now for quite literally the best seat in the house, the driver's seat. But before we talk about anything, this is Hyundai's key fob for the Palisade. I'm doing a bad job holding it, but this one does have Smart Park, as you could see in the beginning of the video. I was actually at first very impressed with the interior of the Palisade. Everything looks so nice. Quality is really high up top here, everywhere, even pieces that you wouldn't touch or where your knees would rest. Everything is soft touch. The steering wheel is 4-spoked and leather wrapped, a very interesting design. I actually find that I rest my hands on it really comfortably. There's a lot of buttons on the wheel. The left side, those buttons control audio and Bluetooth controls. The right side, those buttons control cruise control and some of the safety systems. And also they scroll through some menus on the gauges as well. Speaking of the gauges, they are fully digital. They can change in their appearance depending on the drive mode that you're in, but most of the stuff that you'll see is the speedometer information in the center and the tachometer. There is also a heads-up display which shows a lot of useful information. But as we scroll in the little info screen in the gauges, there's a lot of useful information like driver's assistance, the trip computer, navigation, and also the all-wheel drive system monitor and TPMS. So not a lot in there, but I like that there's not a lot to distract the driver. The steering column itself on this one is manual. I would imagine that they saved the power telescoping wheel for the Genesis products, but still super nice. The driver's seat and mirrors are memory linked. I almost forgot what memory was. Memory. The seats also really impressed me in the Palisade. The driver's seat and the passenger seat are both heated and cooled. I wish both seats in the front offered this, but the driver's seat uses Hyundai's Ergo Motion technology, which massages, and it also changes the lumbar, and also in sport mode I notice it'll actually make the bolsters a little bit tighter. Towards the center you have this huge 12.3-inch touchscreen display. It only supports wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I wish it supported wireless, that would be nice, but it's super responsive. Hyundai's been doing a pretty decent job with their infotainment systems. Two things in here that I find really cool: passenger talk, which other cars did this, but it uses the microphones in the front so you can clearly talk to the people in the third row without yelling back there. And also, if you want to be quiet, there's a quiet mode which only sends the audio to the front door speakers. So if you have children, it actually works very well. It's very quiet in the back, and then, you know, quiet mode, only the front passengers can listen. There's a lot in this infotainment system, a lot of cool things, but as we go down, I find it cool that Hyundai puts hard touch buttons for all the main controls down there, and you have a volume knob and a tuning knob. Thank you. The climate control for the front seats is dual zone. It's cool that this has it. It's like a Land Rover-esque type thing, and it uses haptic feedback. But the only issue I have with this, as simple as the layout is with even without the sunroof shade open, I've gotten blinded in certain angles by the sun from this screen. So if it wasn't a high gloss screen, I think it would be better. Below that, you have the shifter for the 8-speed auto, but as we put the car into reverse, the car does have a backup camera with many views. It has guidance lines that steer with the wheel. This car also can help you park. It has a parking assistant, and like I said, it has smart park, so you can pull the car forwards and backwards, out in and out of tight spaces. But like I said, there's so many views for the backup camera. There's that hitch view, and also there's this 360 cam that you can float around the whole car, something that luxury cars do, and this one does it. So that's pretty cool. The reason why all this HVAC and shifter nonsense is digital is because there's this huge cubby underneath that has a power outlet and another USB port. This thing is loaded with chargers. There's also a wireless charger right behind the shifter with two big cup holders that can either change into just, you know, you can have this whole box, or you can open up the cup holders to be used. But on top of the wireless charger, there's another USB port, and if I open the center console, which the armrest is kind of on the hard side, but it is pretty comfortable, there is another USB port, another power outlet, and this huge center console that has this tray that's removable. The car also has a digital rearview mirror, which works pretty well. I've gotten used to it, but at first I felt like it was a little bit distracting, but it's actually more useful. So right off the bat, this thing has been really nice to live with. I am used to larger cars, but the only thing that I will say is that this car does certainly feel big. In parking lots, when you're going slower, it's not as, like, it's not cumbersome at all. It's not cumbersome like a full size, like a Tahoe or something, but you do feel the size of it. The steering is nice and light, so it makes it easy to toss around, but once you're moving, it really just glides along the road. This doesn't have anything like air suspension or adaptive suspension, but the regular coils and springs work very nice on this. I'm gonna put myself into sport mode for the first time, and let's see. my tripod. It just takes it just takes off like all the other cars in this segment with this much power. Like the Pilot, it's comparable to that. Really, this is a great cruising car. It is so comfortable. It is not the type of SUV to be corner carving or handling with. One of the things, since we're stopped, that I was surprised to see that this car does not have, especially at this price point, is power folding mirrors. It shouldn't be an option on a Calligraphy, something loaded, so I'm assuming that it doesn't have it. And this thing really does ride well. Unlike some other cars in this size, it's not floaty, and it's also not too stiff to make it, feel sportier than it is. On this back road, on some rolling hills, it's nice. Comfort mode the drive modes change the level of, the heaviness or the heft of the steering, and also throttle response and transmission mapping, but it doesn't make it any faster. At highway speeds, it's actually pretty quiet. I've heard some reports from people complaining about how big the mirrors are and they make noise. I don't notice it, or if it did make noise, that would be a compromise I'm willing to make because the mirrors are really easy to look out of. This car really does feel safe, so I think they did a great job. Not even just with the technology that they've put into it, all the safety tech, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but just the way how it drives, the way how you can see everything. I have a great commanding view of the road. All the windows are big, especially that electronic rear view mirror. It helps a lot. The only thing that I've been getting used to is the disconnect that I have from the whole car itself. It's not supposed to be sporty, and it's not a bad thing, but there's no road feel. If you go on bumps, it doesn't jar the wheel. It's just nice. I'm just sitting down and pushing pedals and turning a wheel. This engine does feel like it works hard. It did get up to speed pretty quickly. It's not slow, but it just feels like this engine has to rev a lot and do a lot when you're just normally accelerating. The transmission is also pretty smooth. The only time that I notice it being just, a little bit indecisive is going up some slight grades, and it's just, it kind of hunts for gears, or something that happens to me is, you're gradually giving it more throttle and it decides to kick down like 3 gears instead of just 1 or 2. Something that's impressed me, because I've not tried it in Hyundais before, is I think it's called their Blue Cruise. It's actually doing a good job. Like, you could eat an ice cream cone or a bowl of cereal while you're driving. You shouldn't do that. But it works very well. This does low speed follow as well. Like, it's slowing down as this CX-5, slows down as well. It holds the lanes pretty well. I'd say every minute it tells me to put my hands back on the wheel, but that's nowhere near as often as some other vehicle. And even when the car comes across turn lanes, it doesn't get that confused. It does a good job. Like, I've not been touching the wheel at all this time, or the gas really. So like now, I'm really just sitting down and not doing anything. So this is what driving the car feels like, and it really cuts out the fatigue. I also really like the blind spot cameras that pop up when you turn the left or right turn signal on. Very useful. Again, that's what I mean. This car is safe, very easy to drive. You can't cut people off and not see them, unless if you're not using your signal at all, but even then the car has a blind spot monitor. In a way to categorize this car to myself, it's like the Korean Lexus RX, because it's very smooth, very quiet, very nice to drive, and also simple. Reliable, I don't know. This keeps me pretty entertained, but if I don't fall down, I hope you all enjoy getting up close and personal with the 2023 Hyundai Palisade, and let me know if you guys have one. There's all these two-wheeled people today. 4 wheels are better. God, loud. But if you guys have a Palisade, let me know in the comments below, and let me know how it's been to you, especially people that have had the 2018s and, the older models. I'm always curious about that. But I rather enjoyed the Palisade in the week that I had it. It's very swanky, very comfortable. The powertrain is pretty smooth, but it could use a little bit more power. But for $52,000, there are a few things that I would add to make it perfect, but it's almost there. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, peeps.